Hey everybody, what's happening? Robert Phoenix here. Hold on, I just got to get my owl in the picture. There we go. The owl on the left, Mr. Anunnaki on the right. What's happening? It's Monday morning, the 15th. We're running a little behind schedule today because, well, I just am. I got a life. I got a life. Personal things, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully, some people show up here rather shortly. And I'll continue to talk for a while as I get my material and content together. Good morning, Maury. Were you cold this morning? It is very cold here. We're talking mid 40s, extremely high winds, heavy duty rain, and thunder and lightning. So we got ourselves a meteorological phenomenon happening out here in the hill country. It's very intense. It was last night I was riding my bike home. I was downtown kind of hanging out, and I was riding my bike home, and I was like, wow, how pleasant is this? It's nice, it's warm. And it was probably, I don't know, maybe in the 70s last night. It was in the 70s, easily, like high 70s, about 77, 78. Breezy. It was beautiful. And this morning I wake up and I'm in North Dakota. What a trip. What's out there? What's happening? As always, a lot going on out there in the big, wide world. Oh boy, where do we start? Where the heck do we start? Let's see. Let's just, you know what I'd like to do now? I like to go to Yahoo. Let me go to Yahoo and just look at I like to look at the Yahoo headlines because they're kind of ridiculous. And Yahoo, as I mentioned before, was really bleeding cash in a very big way and made a deal with Google because, well, they were bleeding cash. So Google did like an advertising. You never hear about Yahoo anymore. You just don't, because they've become this kind of marketing PR arm for Google, which is it's a salacious sort of progressive site. You know, when Yahoo was first started, it was started by internet rebels, right? Like Jerry Yang and these people. They're all Web 1.0, and yeah, now it's not the case anymore. Jerry Yang is long gone, and Yahoo is an enemy of the state, or at least to some people. So I like to look at what Yahoo has because it gives us a sense as to what the Vox Populi is consuming. Let's see what we have here. Well, first of all, there's a football. See, one of the things that Yahoo loves to do is Yahoo loves to promote the fact that men are evil and white men are even more evil, and then white people in general. So it'd be white. It would be, let's see, men are evil, white people are evil, and then white men are the most evil. You see this on Yahoo all the time. So from their, this could be considered quasi-racist file. Last night, Tyreek Hill, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, who started on my fantasy team last night, he scored 3 touchdowns. And on one of his touchdowns, he got beer thrown on him, and then somebody flipped him a middle finger. Could that be considered part of Yahoo's racist, anti-racist campaign? Question mark. Perhaps. They also are trumpeting the fact that Elizabeth Warren has released her DNA tests, and she is 1/512th Indian, Native American. Kanye West and Kim Kardashian visited the president of Uganda, and they gifted him with sneakers. And there's a picture of them together, and Kim showing off her fabulous fake tits. They're not that fabulous, by the way, but they are very fake. So why is Kanye West and Kim Kardashian going to Uganda? Can somebody answer that for me? Something's going on there. And boy, has the left turned on Kanye. He used to be everybody's favorite rapper. Not anymore. Not anymore. Let's see. What else do we have here? I'm just going through. I like to look at the Yahoo stuff. Let's see. It's pretty quiet day in terms of assaulting the senses in a lot of ways here. Let's see. Oh, Michael Che drops N-word on Weekend Update with Seth Meyers. Ooh, revolutionary. Michael Che. Let's see. Oh, Iranian dissident journalist Masih Alinejad on Jamal Khashoggi's fate. What is the West going to do? Good question. Very good question. Pete Davidson and Ariana Grande split up. If you don't know who Pete Davidson is, he's a comedian for Saturday Night Live. And oh boy, were they so close together. They were so close. He had a tattoo of her on him. That doesn't say much for Pete Davidson. He's also got a tattoo of Hillary Clinton on him. Yes, that's true. Let's see. What else do we have here? And now Michael Cohen has become a spokesperson for the Democrats. It's the most important vote of our lifetime. You know what they're doing? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I'm not sitting here again. I'm not banging my drum for Donald Trump and the conservatives and the Republicans. I'm just not. But I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work. And I'll tell you why it's not going to work. Because people are more sophisticated than we give them credit for. I know. There's a part of the population that is kind of asleep, kind of unaware, not really, taking the pulse of things. But there's another part that's a lot more sophisticated. So when they actually see that Facebook and Twitter are eliminating accounts of people who are conservatives or on the alt-right or whatever, then they're probably looking at, wow, what's going on here? This looks like it's a pretty fascistic tendency to me. Maybe I should really re-examine my position on some of these things. And yes, that's happening, believe it or not. There was a poll that came out where Taylor Swift announced that she was going to be, she announced that she's in love with the Democrats and the progressives, and that's where she's putting her money and her might behind. And particularly around one candidate. And after she did that, that candidate's opponent's support rose by 14%. So here's a memo to the Democrats and the progressives. You should probably hold off on having celebrity endorsements for your candidates. It may not be such a good thing if you want to have a chance. And I'm on record that I believe the Republicans are going to win both the House and the Senate during the midterms. Now, I also believe there's going to be some voting impropriety. That's going to happen. We looked at the charts. It's going to happen. And when it does, this whole thing could just tilt on its axis. Okay. Let me see what else. Oh, here's a nice little tidbit here from Yahoo, which introduces ideas to the mainstream. And this idea is, at what point do we admit that geoengineering is an option? You see where this is going? I'll read it to you. This is from TechCrunch. So they're taking a piece of content from TechCrunch and putting it on their server. And this is from a day ago. The author is John Evans. In 1883, Krakatoa erupted, spewing volcanic ash and gas into the stratosphere, making clouds more reflective and cooling the entire planet by roughly 1 degree centigrade that year. In 2018, the UN reported that human activity has already raised Earth's temperature by 1 degree. And if we don't do something drastic soon, the results will be catastrophic. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Would that be the worst thing? I'm telling you right now, would catastrophic results be the worst thing for the planet? I mean, think about it. Maybe the planet could get a rest. Maybe a bunch of useless eaters could be organically given their release from the planet. Right? I mean, catastrophic may not be the worst thing. I'll tell you what's catastrophic. What's catastrophic is the world continuing to de-evolve in other areas, some of which have nothing to do with the atmosphere or the environment or the ecology. Okay, so the optimal solution is staring us in the face. Of course, reduce carbon emissions. So climate change person. Unfortunately, this optimal solution is politically untenable and extremely expensive. A decade ago, McKinsey estimated it would cost $1 trillion just to halve the growth of carbon emissions in India alone. That's still less than the cost of doing nothing, estimated at $20 trillion by nature, which doesn't include stolen human lives. But it's a cost which seems to make the necessary political decisions impossible. The analysts concluded that it was just human nature and you couldn't fix it. So they went for a quick, cheap, technical fix. That's a quote from Neil Stephenson's book, Snow Crash. There is another option. The root problem we face is not carbon concentrations, but atmospheric temperature. There are other negative side effects of carbon emissions like ocean acidification, but the temperature is the big one. We already know how to cool the planet without reducing carbon. The solution is so simple, it's almost laughable. Just make our clouds a little more reflective, so they reflect more of the sun's light and thus reduce our heat. Volcanoes like Krakatoa do it all the time. Now, is this a good idea? Probably not. In the case of sulfur dioxide, definitely not. It will come back down as acid rain. But it's worth noting the solution is so relatively cheap, estimated at less than $1 billion a year, that an individual nation, or heck, even an individual, that's less than Jeff Bezos spends on Blue Origin each year, that's his space project, could make it happen. The classic example is the low-lying, high-population nation of Bangladesh. At some point, it will be cheaper for Bangladesh to single-handedly cool down the world with sulfur dioxide than to pay the cost of climate change. Why would they not choose to do so? There are better geoengineering solutions. Simple seawater could brighten marine clouds with the same effect for more money. But in general, is geoengineering a good idea? Again, probably not. Proponents of cloud seeding say it will easily cool the Earth back down to normal levels. Skeptics, armed with climate models, say it's much more complicated than that. The atmosphere is a chaotic system, and the results will be localized, regional, and disruptive. Using iron fertilization to generate plankton blooms that siphon carbon dioxide from the atmosphere has also been suggested. But it should go without saying that messing with the global oceanic ecosystem is likely to have at best emergent properties. People do generally concede that cloud manipulation is a better idea than doing nothing at all, in that at least it would buy us 25 years or more in which to build some kind of biotech carbon sink, with the caveat that once we start seeding the clouds, we can't stop, because if we do all the global warming we've been fending off, we'll hit it once in a huge hurry. Numbers like a rate of up to 4 degrees centigrade per decade, or 20 times faster at present, are bandied about. This goes on and on and on. Apparently, this person has never heard of chemtrails. Okay, never heard of chemtrails. They work for TechCrunch, but they have never heard of chemtrails. John Evans, I hate to break the news to you, pal, but this has been going on for in earnest since 1997 and even before then. Yeah, the geoengineering is happening and has been happening. Hello, but this is what Yahoo does. It gets people. Oh, What a good idea that must be. What a good idea. Let's engineer the clouds because oh my god, we got to stop this thing, or else it's going to be a catastrophe. It's gonna, it's like, man, let the catastrophe happen. Let the chips fall where they may sometimes. Hey, come on. And maybe nature has a way of dealing with it. Oh no, we don't want to let nature get involved. We got to master nature. That's what we're here to do. Master nature, every single aspect of it. Brought to you by Yahoo. Shall we see what else Yahoo has? Let's see. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Nothing really all that interesting. Mhm. No, nothing. Dave Chappelle, rhetoric of Trump's presidency has been repugnant. Dave Chappelle stepping back into the limelight. Hey, Dave, you can be reborn. You can be reborn by becoming a dyed-in-the-wool social justice warrior. Because I have to say, Dave, ever since you decided to come out of your cave, you haven't been all that funny. I like you. You're a fellow Virgo. And when you were doing your show, it was some of the best TV I've ever seen. The Dave Chappelle Show, the 3 seasons of the Dave Chappelle Show were out and out pure genius, pure and utter genius. But looks like Dave is taking a few little steps to the left. Let's see. Meet the press. XCI head John Brennan calls Saudi leader a Hollywood player and an authoritarian. How about that? I'm sure something that John Brennan himself would like to check out on some level. Okay, here we go. Here's this is what I was looking for. This is Yahoo's white people bad post for the day. Man who shot at black teenager asking for directions to school convicted for assault. Okay. And just in case you weren't paying attention, the Brooklyn witches plan to put a hex on Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. They've hexed President Donald Trump 3 times. How's that working out? How is that working out for the witches? I think Trump's got some other strange magic going on there. It's what it is. It's called being a Jesuit and a Mason. And Portland apparently is the new St. Petersburg. It's not Washington, D.C., where they will attempt to launch the revolution from in this country. It happens to be Portland, Oregon. Because it seems like every week now there are fights and battles in the streets of Portland. Patriots versus Antifa. And you know that both sides have been seated with agent provocateurs. You know that there are going to be violent assholes inside of Antifa who aren't the same as the other violent assholes that are inside Antifa, but perhaps want to become much more engaged in confrontations than the, at times, perhaps slightly passive, violent assholes from Antifa. And then on the right, always you'll have the thugs that come in and they'll try to stir things up, aka the Proud Boys. But that's it. Portland is the new ground zero. The new ground zero. And now Trump is going to chime in with suggesting that rogue killers may be involved in disappearance of journalist Khashoggi. Oh, rogue killers. Very interesting. Yeah, the reason why they're rogue killers is because he knows his buddy in Saudi Arabia, Prince Salman, got pissed off at him. And he decided he's going to show Trump and the rest of the world a lesson. And that's what he did. So now Trump's people are saying, maybe you should Let's get out the road killer script. You can't go back. You can't go back on Salman for this. Okay, I mean, let's be honest. The Khashoggi guy is nothing really. Road killers. So now it's the road killers. Of course, always the road killers. Oil is rallying after Trump threatens severe punishment against Saudi Arabia if it is found to have been involved in the disappearance and death of the said journalist Khashoggi. Okay. Wanted to bring something up here before I jump into the hardcore real news. Let's go into the chat room, see what's going on in the old chat room. Okay, this is an interesting. Somebody Ani brings up that Chappelle doesn't look like Chappelle. You know, you're not the first person that said that, Ani. That he that there are people who believe that Dave Chappelle is replaced. But the one thing about Dave Chappelle, at least this version, is he's totally buffed out, right? He's not the skinny Dave. He's certainly not the funny Dave. He could be. There are pictures of Eddie Murphy too, where Eddie Murphy doesn't look like each other, does it? Astrologer abducted in Fredericksburg. Oh, who's that? Oh, that's not me. There are other astrologers in Fredericksburg. Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen to any astrologer that lives in Fredericksburg. That would be really unfortunate. Road killers named Clinton see forbidden knowledge from this morning. Oh, okay. Also, what they say about the UN ambassador. There we go. Go check out the website Forbidden Knowledge. It's just not the body, even eyes. Well, exactly. When Dave Chappelle came back and started to do those specials for HBO, his timing was different. Comics have a timing. It's like everybody has a gait, a particular gait when they walk, and comics have a particular timing. And that was not Dave Chappelle's timing. It was off. There was something. I mean, you could say, well, he's just coming back, but I don't think so. You disappeared here for a few moments, Robert. Oh, yeah, you know what it is. I'll tell you why I disappeared. It's the connection. So, hey, Lori, what's going on? What's happening? Lori Camacho. Hey, okay, let's get into this story that I put up on Facebook today. This is where things now. This is where we are now in terms of the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 program. So let us bring our attention to the state of California, where they have had fires, considerable fires over the last how many years? 3 years easily. Big, significant, hot, community slashing fires. Okay, well, look who's here. I love her. I really do. But she has to get down. Please. I let her down easily. Don't report me to the authorities because I let my cat down easily. And she landed on all 4 paws. Okay, here we go. So keep in mind, these people have been burned out in the outer lying areas of California. Okay, and the idea is to move people from rural areas into the megalopolis, which is the enormous cities that are going to be part of Agenda 21. It's already happening. So I'm going to read this to you here. This is from the SF Gate, which is the online version of the Chronicle. And let me just see if I can get a good page sort of resolution here. Okay, we got it. Tens of thousands of people in 12 counties were bracing for power failures in the Bay Area and Sierra foothills Sunday night after Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E, owned by the Rothschilds, by the way, announced it would preemptively shut off electricity in anticipation of gusty winds, bone-dry weather, and dangerous fire conditions across Northern California. Now, they could say that they're being preemptive and they don't want any spark or random electrical malfunction to set off another fire. They're covering their ass because they're being sued based on other fires that have happened previously, or this could be a sign of the times in the shape of things to come. The plan was to shut off power to as many as 87,000 customers in extreme fire risk areas in Napa, Sonoma, Lake, Sierra, Placer, Nevada, Butte, Yuba, Plumas, Amador, El Dorado, and Calaveras counties. My mother and father used to live in El Dorado County. It's a very green area. The blackouts were scheduled to begin as early as 5 p.m. PG announced that power had been cut to parts of Napa, Sonoma, Lake counties at 8:03 p.m. They're shutting down power. They did this before, but that's when Enron was involved. I'll never forget that. It was such a weird time. Living in California around 2000, it was such a bizarre. I remember one time I was working in Redwood City at the digital music company I worked for, and I had this really cool little place. It was back in a little town called La Honda, and it's where the '60s were born. It's where Ken Kesey hung out and used to have the first electric Kool-Aid acid tests. So La Honda was like the epicenter of the psychedelic explosion in a lot of ways. That in upstate New York with Millbrook and Tim Leary. Anyway, I lived in this place, a little grandmother cottage, and there were like giant redwoods. I mean, it's fantastic. I got a giant redwood right on the outside of my deck. So what I would do is I had a bench press, right? I had a bench press, some weights. I go running in the morning. I hit the bench press, and I would be looking straight up into this giant redwood, just like tapping into the power of that tree. How cool was that? I mean, I loved that place. That was one of the best places I ever lived, to be honest with you. Population, I don't know, 900, something like that. One day I came home, and this is the time when PG&E was doing their rolling blackouts because Enron was ripping us off. Pete Wilson did a deal with Enron, and they had to shut down power so California could buy power from other states. And of course, Enron was selling the power. Watch The Smartest Guys in the Room. Mind-blowing documentary. I come home one day, and there's like this blaze, this massive blaze kind of going on next to the property that I'm living at. And then this whole thing with the power is, we're having these rolling brands. It was just a weird time. Anyway, we continue to monitor weather conditions in the Sierra foothills, PG&E spokeswoman Andrea Meninetti said Sunday night. The move was unprecedented for Northern California, where the impacts would be felt from remote towns to cities such as Santa Rosa, Napa, Oroville, and Auburn, and to popular tourist getaways such as Nevada City, Calistoga, and Healdsburg. Scheduled shutoffs were expected to roll through the North Bay and Sierra throughout the evening, when the National Weather Service had forecast strong winds and low humidity at higher elevations. Many factors played into the decision to turn off the power, including a widespread red flag warning, on-the-ground reports from workers, and humidity levels below 20%. The goal was to limit the fire risk posed by live utility lines that can fall in a windstorm. It all sounds great. It all sounds logical, doesn't it? But at the end of the day, this is the sign of the times. Sign of the times. Let me continue. Some officials applauded the movement. Others were upset. Joan Sato, 69 of Clear Lake, Lake County, said the breathing system she uses for her sleep apnea won't work without electricity. And nobody at PG&E could tell her what was happening or how she should handle the situation. Here's how you handle the situation, Joan. You ready? Go move to Hayward. That's how you handle the situation. Go move to Vallejo, Joan. They'll have power. That's how you handle the situation. Here's what she says. I'm angry for sure because it's totally irresponsible to pull this stuff, said Sato, who was alone in her darkened home with her 90-pound Shepherd mix after the electricity went off at 8:35 p.m. I'm going to have to drive to a hotel and stay in a hotel where there is power But with no lights, it's not going to be a safe thing. That means my dog will be sitting in the car all night. It's not just me, it's every damn senior up here. Yes, damned is the appropriate word to use, Joan. In the past, PG&E has resisted preemptively turning off power, saying it poses its own risks. It could leave police, firefighters, and hospitals with no electricity during an emergency. After last year's devastating fires, though, PG&E developed protocols detailing when and how to shut off power in the face of potential life-threatening conditions. The utility has prepared for but never executed such an action. Well, it's happening now. It is happening now. The Onyx Theater, a small independent cinema in Nevada City, closed early Sunday night after its manager, Celine Negrete, received a recorded message saying that its power would be turned off. Negrete canceled shows, a decision that will cost the business money. To avoid having customers left in the dark midway through a screening, we show really strong and powerful films, Negrete said. And I didn't want our patrons to be interrupted by a power outage. Maybe you should have been. Maybe you should have done that. Maybe that would have been the strongest, most powerful film that your patrons could have participated in at that time. Participated in, not projected into. Many in the community understand PG&E's decision, Negrete said, but some are still frustrated. There's a feeling that this is because PG&E didn't take care of what needed to be taken care of in the past, and now we're having to pay for that price, she said. That's what I'm hearing on social media, really loudly. Well, the whispers on social media, Ms. Negrete, is that PG&E is doing this so that you and others can eventually get out of those situations that are going to test your patience, test your business sense and best practices, and just get the hell out of there and go to where there's power. Let's see. I guess Susan Gorin, she's a county supervisor of Sonoma. I do believe that the community would rather PG&E take proactive action than have the possibility of a repeat of the fires last year, said Susan Gorin, a Sonoma County supervisor. We're very sensitized to high winds, smelling smoke, and everybody is very aware of vegetation management. Any measures the government or utilities can take to lessen the risk of a repeat of the hellacious firestorms would be greatly appreciated by the community. Yes, we appreciate. Power companies in Southern California often have shut down power during the Santa Ana winds for the past decade. Oh, okay, there's precedent. San Diego Gas and Electric, they've been doing this since 2003, the Cedar Fire. I was there. I was there for that fire. Man, oh man. Crazy stuff. Anyway, I thought I would talk about this today because I believe my paranoid self from the future is channeling back to me that this is the movement towards beginning to eliminate the services, power and electrical and other services. We might see water in the future, and certainly safety services, which would be fire and police services from the rural areas. I mean, this is where it's all going. They don't want people living on the land. The time of owning land in the minds of the globalists is over. Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 is a collectivist project, and we're being prepared for it every single day. And I talked about this the other day when I got into some of the commercials, and they keep getting more and more geared towards serving up a model of the future that we're going to be living in. There's a new ad, I believe it's from, I think it's Mercedes, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a car that people are in, and they're not even doing anything. You know, it's not one of these shitty looking self-driving cars. You know, the ones I'm talking about, they just look like, you know, funky, weird, like you wouldn't want to set foot in it. No, this is like a really plush, very cool space age self-driving car. The seats face each other. People are hanging out, they're talking. Oh man, they're just socializing. That car is just going to wherever they need to go. And they don't need to know, right? Okay, we'll get there. We're going to pop out. No, like popping out of an egg. Oh, we're here. How about that? Oh, that's great. I'm telling you, this is what's happening. They are now seeding the cinema of your mind, your thoughts. It's all out there. So I went on a little trip down memory lane this weekend. I'm a big fan of 1970s cinema. Late 60s, early 70s cinema is one of my favorite periods in movie making because a lot of the directors were very cynical and they get very close to the truth in quite a few films during the 1970s. If you've never seen The Parallax View with Warren Beatty, I highly recommend it. There's a few others. So I decided to, I wasn't looking for anything controversial or deep. It was a film I hadn't seen in quite a while. I hadn't seen, period. It was a film called California Split with Elliot Gould and George Siegel, and they play gamblers living in Southern California. It's a Robert Altman movie, and it's typical Altman. You know, people talking over each other and very quirky, strong, kind of odd homoerotic undercurrent with Elliot Gould and George Siegel. And I like Elliot Gould. I think he's very funny. Happens to be a Virgo. So then I remembered a film that I hadn't seen in a very long time that he did with Robert Blake called Busting. And I remember as a kid, it came out in 1974. And when I was a kid, I was really looking forward to watching this movie. And indeed, I did go see it. And I went to see it in the drive-in theater, I believe with my parents, if I'm not mistaken. And it's, again, kind of one of these semi-noirish 70s kind of cop films. Blake and Gould play vice cops, and they have the crappiest gigs, shittiest gigs. And you go back and you look at some of the stuff that they were busting for, and you look at it now, and it's just like, you got to be kidding me. You know, back then they would have gay bars. Back then in the film, they called them fruit bars. And they would go in, and after hours, apparently, these bars would get a little, how shall we say, lascivious. So they went in, and they were hanging out and posing as two lovers in this bar, and a fight breaks out and busts some people. The movie's okay. But I was also a fan growing up of Robert Blake. I loved watching Robert Blake and Beretta. And by the way, just for a little movie knowledge, in case you guys are into it, the movie Busting spawned the TV series Starsky and Hutch. And in fact, Huggy Bear, played by Antonio Fargas, plays a drag queen inside of the movie Busting, and he's the link because he shows up as Huggy Bear on Starsky. You know, back then, there was always like the white cop with like the cool brother. You know, Robert Blake had it on Beretta. He had Rooster, and then there was Huggy Bear, and there was the guy who what's his name? Died of cancer. Urich. He had a show, and there was that guy with the goatee. Like, I mean, there was a theme, right? It was kind of a theme going on. You know, it was like the guy had street cred. Anyway, I decided to look up Robert Blake's life. Robert Blake has had probably one of the longest careers in Hollywood. Robert Blake started acting when he was a child, and I believe his last film, if I'm not mistaken, was the David Lynch movie, which was a crazy film. And then he got into that High Strange with Bonnie Blakely. So I looked up Robert Blake's life. I wanted to see what was going on with him. Like, what kind of upbringing did Robert Blake have? And when I share with you his upbringing here, you won't be surprised. And not only will you not be surprised, but when I read this bio to you, you're going to see the template of what happens to child stars. And it goes all the way back to at least the 30s, which is when Robert Blake became a child star. He was born September 18th, 1933. I'm going to read this to you. Blake was born Michael James Gubitosi in Nutley, New Jersey. His mother, Elizabeth Cafone, was married to Giacomo Gubitosi. He lived until 1956. And Elizabeth Cafone doesn't say when she passed. In 1930, James worked as a die setter for a can manufacturer. Eventually, James and Elizabeth began a song and dance act in 1936. So by this time, little Michael, who will be known as Robert Blake, was 3 years old. The three children, they had 3 kids. The 3 children began performing, billed as the Three Little Hillbillies. They moved to Los Angeles in 1938, where their children began working as movie extras. Isn't this interesting that they were called the Three Little Hillbillies and then they moved to LA? You ever wonder where maybe they got the Beverly Hillbillies from, theoretically? So they moved there. They began working as movie extras. Blake had an unhappy childhood and was allegedly abused by his alcoholic father. When he entered public school at age 10, he was bullied and had fights, which led to his expulsion. Blake says that he was physically and sexually abused by his parents while growing up and was frequently locked in a closet and forced to eat off the floor. At age 14, he ran away from home, leading to several more difficult years. His father committed suicide in 1956. Then known as Mickey Gubitosi, Blake began his acting career as Toto in the MGM movie Bridal Suite, starring Annabella and Robert Young. Gubitosi then began appearing in MGM's Our Gang short subjects, also known as The Little Rascals, under his real name. His name is Mickey, replacing Eugene Porky Lee. He appeared in 40 of the shorts between 1939 and 1944, eventually becoming the series' final lead character. James and Giovanna Gubitosi also made appearances in the series as extras. In Our Gang, Gubitosi's character, Mickey, was often called upon to cry, for which he was criticized for being unconvincing. He was also criticized for being obnoxious and whiny. In 1942, the stage named Bobby Blake, and his character in the series was renamed Mickey Blake. In 1944, MGM discontinued Our Gang, released the final short in the series, Dancing Romeo. In 1995, Blake was honored by the Young Artist Foundation with his former child star Lifetime Achievement Award for his role in Our Gang. Then he played in an Andy Hardy film called Andy Hardy's Double Life. In 1944, Blake began playing a Native American boy, Little Beaver, in the Red Ryder Western series at the studios of Republic Pictures, now CBS, Radford Studios, appearing in 23 of the movies until 1947. He also had roles in one of Laurel and Hardy's later films, The Big Noise, in the Warner Brothers movies Humoresque, playing John Garfield's character as a child. Excuse me. And I remember him in this one, The Treasured Sierra Madre, playing the Mexican boy who sells Humphrey Bogart a winning lottery ticket and gets a glass of water thrown in his face by Bogart in the process. In 1950, he was drafted into the Army. And then he comes back and he enters Jeff Corey's acting class. 1959 was considered a career blunder. He turned down the role of Little Joe Cartwright, a character ultimately played by Michael Landon, portrayed by Michael. I have a funny story, a weird story about Michael Landon. It's not that weird. But I remember as a kid, I was about 4 years old, maybe 3. And I was asleep. And I got up in the middle of the night and I went into the living room and I turned on the TV and it was The Tonight Show with Jack Parr. I'll never forget this. And Michael Landon and Dan Blocker were on as guests. I said, The memories always stayed with me. Anyway, this goes on and on and on. It talks about Blake's evolution as an actor. He really became sort of well known for his role of real life murderer Perry Smith in the film portrayal of Truman Capote's book In Cold Blood. And then he kicks around for a while. An interesting film that he plays in is Electra Glide in Blue. That's one of those cynical 70s kinds of films. Anyway, I'm bringing this up because you can look at what happened to him. I mean, clearly he says here that he was physically abused, sexually abused, and not only that, but he was locked in a room 4 feet off the floor. This kid is programmed. This is trauma programming to create a child actor. This is exactly what was going on, so that his parents could pimp him out. It wasn't just like they could create partitioned off compartments of the brain. No. It's very likely that their parents, would allow other men to do what they did at home. It's part of the game. And it's probably something that Robert Blake hasn't talked about. And of course, he gets into this weird thing with the death of his wife, which, for all intents and purposes, he probably did. But he got off. And how he got off, that's a whole other ball of wax. The last film he did was in 1997, Lost Highway. And that's a David Lynch film, which is a very creepy, eerie movie about jealousy, bilocation, disassociation. It is a very disturbing film in a way that only David Lynch can make a disturbing movie. That was his last film. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring this up because when I began to read his bio, it was like, wow, there's the template. It's right there. And not somebody you would normally consider to be part of that process or part of the dilemma or part of the absolute catastrophe of the desecration of innocence in the name of fame, fortune, and money. One Robert Blake. Let's check in with the chat room there and see how people are doing. Electric Guide in Blue. Great movie. New fire in Reading yesterday called the Masonic Fire. How about that? That comes in. Let's see. What else do we have here? Maybe Dave had some electroshock pre-programmed. Maybe, I don't know if he did. I mean, if you look at Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy does. I mean, we all age. I was looking at a picture of myself from about 5 years ago. I'm like, wow, that's me. So we all age, but there's certain characteristics that are always going to be the same. And Eddie Murphy, there are different versions of Eddie Murphy. What's going on, Justice Moody? How are you? Good morning. Welcome. Let me just see if there's any other quick headlines here that I need to cover with you folks today. See if there's any. Apparently, the internet's going to go down for 48 hours this week. Have you guys heard that? That's been floating around on Facebook. Have you guys heard about the internet going down for 48 hours? Question mark. If you have, go ahead and chime in the chat room. Let's see if you guys have heard that. What do we have here? The UES Republican Club has been vandalized. It is the Republican Park City's headquarters. And vandals broke several windows of the Metropolitan Republic Club on East 83rd Street near Lexington and spray painted a symbol associated with anarchism on the club's doors. The vandals left a note. Our attack is merely a beginning. We are not passive. We are not civil, and we will not apologize. Signed, the Southern Poverty Law Center. No, I'm just kidding. you know, some of these things could be false flags. I mean, they can be. It could also be real. It could also be a bunch of pissed off Antiphans. But it could also be a false flag to stir things up. It happens. I'm just reporting this to you, just so you know. Ecuador partly restores Julian Assange's internet access at embassy base. What does that mean, partly restores? You either get internet access or you don't. What do you, I mean, is he only allowed to go to certain sites? Is he even there? I don't know. Let's see, what else? Now, apparently Jamal Khashoggi recorded his own torture and murder on Apple Watch. Turkish paper claims. Ooh, that's some spy shit, isn't it? Isn't that like they don't know you have the Apple Watch on because these people probably aren't all that hip. You know, he's back here. He clicks it on, and you know he's got the Apple Watch on. It's recording everything. But that's some spy stuff right there. Oh, the U.S. pastor is freed from Turkey, and he prays with Trump. So, okay, wasn't there a deal in place with the guy from what's his name, Gulen? What's the guy's name? He's from Turkey. Come on, you know who he is. God, he's one of these characters. He's like worth billions of dollars. He's setting up schools all over the country. You know who he is. You know what I'm talking about. No, he's got it back at the embassy. Do you really believe Julian Assange is still there? Do you really believe he's there? Fethullah, thank you. Fethullah. It sounds like something you would get at a Greek restaurant, doesn't it? I'll have the feta gulen, please. Yeah, I love the feta. Makes the gulen taste great because I'm lactose intolerant and feta is goat cheese. Do you really think Julian Assange is still alive and he's still there? I have my doubts. I seriously have my doubts. We need proof of life. We need a proof of life. That's what we need. Because what wasn't one of the conditions of the pastor being freed was that Fethullah would wind up going back to Turkey? Maybe Khashoggi was like a trade-off. I don't know. U.S. repeatedly rejected Russian offer of mutual non-intervention pact. Let's see. Anything else happening? No. Yeah, just the Facebook purging over 800 accounts with millions of followers. That's really the big story. But I'm telling you right now, it is not going to work. And when this is kind of that version of the last stand for that side. And when it doesn't work, they're going to be all out of tricks. They're going to be all out of tricks. They're going to have to go all in. And maybe this headline that I wrote about or read about the UES Republican Club being vandalized is a sign of things to come. It's quite possible. Quite possible. Let me check back with everybody in the chat room. See what we have here. Zero Hedge has the article. I know, a mixture of tough as nails here, really soft and beautiful on the inside. Tough as nails on the exterior and soft and beautiful on the inside. Well, that sounds like a prickly pear. Apple Watch soon will log every fart we do. It's already happening. And then Lori says, "Where is he? Oh, you think he's? I think he's gone. I don't think Julian Assange is there. That's just me. That's just me. I have no proof of life, and there hasn't been any real. You know, WikiLeaks, by the way, was always a limited hang. Always. It was always going to be one of those things where it was just a setup. Check out the above link I posted. We have a Texas Christian lady protests Texas Muslim Capital Day. Oh. Right. Let me see if I can get into that. Texas Muslim Capital. Let's do a little quick look. See, Texas Muslim Capital Day. Let's see, what is this all about? That's why I love my chat room. It's happening. Let's see. Christine Weick interrupts Texas Muslim Capital Day speaker. That was on January 29th, 2015. Let me see. Got it. Interesting. Well, the area that I'm in, not a lot of Muslims here, but in Dripping Springs, which is not far from here, there's a lot of Saudi money in Dripping Springs and in developments that are funded by the Saudis. So I'm expecting some high-level, big money Saudis/Muslims moving into Dripping Springs. And when I was living in Oak Hill in Southwest Austin, there was a mosque right across the street from the apartment building that I lived in. And in Northeast Austin, you could tell that there was a huge refugee thing happening there. I remember going to a taqueria, and there was some guy from Somalia with the sharpest looking Adidas jumpsuit and tennies, and he had some kind of like badge on. He couldn't speak English, but he was trying to order food from this taqueria. Like, okay, shape of things to come. Okay, I checked it out, and there it is. Texas Capital, like Christine Weick. Like she interrupted it. All right, you go, Christine. All right, I'm about out of here for today. Nobody answered about the internet going down for 48 hours in the chat room. Nobody responded to that. Let me just see. Anybody? Yeah. Let me see. Anybody connect with that? No. Okay. All right. I'll be back tomorrow with some more interesting tidbits around the news, personal takes, but until then, we've reached the hour limit, and I'm sorry, you'll have to insert more quarters in order for me to be able to continue this broadcast. That's going to happen in the future, by the way. Please insert more tokens. If you insert more tokens, I'll continue to talk. Or perhaps you can insert tokens to keep me from talking. In that case, that would be a whole other operation. Yeah, my internet. Something's up with the internet today. Sorry, boys and girls. I'm out of here. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow. This is Robert Phoenix. 15 minutes of flame. Bye.